Can you talk about what happened with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've always dreamed of being a mom. It's something I thought about even when I was an adolescent, and I wasn't always sure if it'd be in the cards for me. I don't have a history of mental illness or psychiatric history prior to becoming pregnant. And so almost half people who experience postpartum psychosis actually do not have prior psychiatric history. But I did have a host of hormonal issues. So I had PCOS, or I think it's now called PMOS, and aspects that I thought would make it really challenging to become a mom. And so when I did become pregnant in 2020, in the peak of the pandemic, frankly, I had so much gratitude despite the isolation that like my body didn't fail me, that I was able to, become a mom. And so, I didn't have any mental health complications that were clinically diagnosed in my pregnancy. In fact, I'd never seen a therapist, a psychiatrist, or taken medication. And it was really the postpartum period where the journey turned really dark for me. And so, a variety of things happened. So first of all, I had to labor and deliver in a mask because it was the pandemic.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I had what I now know is medically a traumatic birth experience. So my labor experience lasted 46 hours and 16 minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
That was a combination of factors. We weren't sure whether my water had been broken. And there were some challenges there. And so what people may not realize is birth trauma is what we call a psychosocial factor that also can trigger, maternal mental health challenges. So that happened. I also, had all intentions of breastfeeding. And so my partner and I were hoping that we could provide breast milk and do pumping. But my daughter had a really hard time latching. And so that's where really the sleep deprivation started. So didn't sleep much during labor, lost a lot of sleep in just arduous breastfeeding. And because my daughter wasn't able to latch, she lost a third of her body weight. And so I actually went to the pediatrician the morning I was hospitalized and was told that we had to wean her to formula right away for her safety.
Kriti, I feel like so many women are listening to this and it's like saying, oh my gosh, this is so similar to my story.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, it was a perfect storm of sleep deprivation, being a new mom, a traumatic birth experience. My partner had to go to work because of short paternity leave in this country. He had to go back to work. And all these things coincided. And, I didn't sleep for 4 days straight through a combination of factors. And really, that's when I started behaving a little differently. And I think, people have these perceptions around postpartum depression, and there's either a lack of information or misinformation. But with postpartum psychosis, you can experience highs. It's not necessarily just lows. And so I felt on top of the world. I felt really confident. And I wasn't sleeping, but, my partner and family thought I was just being like a high-achieving mom who was trying to do the best for her child. And ultimately, one of my first delusions was that I believed I had severe postpartum depression. So that was actually my delusion. And so I was very concerned about my ability to parent my daughter. I thought I was an unfit mother. And so I also—
And did you express that to a doctor? Were you able to express that to a doctor?
It's interesting. As Dr. Heather mentioned, postpartum psychosis is truly a break from reality. And what I want to emphasize is that this is not an intrusive thought that I am aware of being in a separate reality. Like, to me, this was very real. And so interestingly, it wasn't necessarily my doctor. It was actually my partner, my mom, and direct family members that I was saying, I think I have the baby blues. I think I have postpartum depression. In fact, I wrote emails to them in my mania about, I'm going to find a therapist. I'm going to find support groups. And, the other piece that I haven't shared publicly is I actually posted on Instagram 6 days before I was hospitalized with postpartum psychosis. And it was a long post talking about how being a mom is hard and how I think I have medically what's known as the baby blues, and basically listing out for my Instagram friends all the things I would do to take care of my mental health. And so, Dr. Heather often says postpartum psychosis can hide in plain sight. And so I was hiding in plain sight.
Right, because if you were my friend, if you were my daughter, I would be thinking, oh, she's aware that there's something going on. She's seeking treatment, or those all seem rational to some degree. Am I wrong? That's So what then led to the psychosis?
Absolutely. So again, I think sleep deprivation and all these combination of factors, cessation of feeding, and all these things led to it. But ultimately, it was a variety of things. So I actually, believe it or not, in my delusions, I thought both my husband and I were having a panic attack and that we were both unfit to parent. And so I called 911. I am the one who called 911, believing that I was experiencing some form of an emergency, that my partner and I were not fit to parent our child. It was really just me. It wasn't him. But in my delusion, I thought it was both of us. And admittedly, through that 911 call, getting connected with an OB who was an incredible OB, who was available to my partner 24/7, in chatting with her, in chatting with my partner, my mom who was there, and then one of my cousins who was a psychologist who I actually called to be like, I think I need help. They made the brave decision to send me to the emergency room. Mm-hmm. And I was in the emergency room for about 48 hours and then transferred to a general population inpatient psychiatric unit.
Without your baby?
Not only without my baby, Norah, without my partner, and frankly, no visitation. So I was fully and entirely separated from my partner, my baby, for 10 days. I was in a mask. I was in a unit where there was no other mothers. I'm a vegetarian person. I didn't have access to vegetarian food. I didn't have access to fresh air for more than an hour a day through a barbed wire in a high-rise building. And I got my phone for about an hour a day where my partner or my mom would send me photos of my daughter, my dog Simba, and that sort of got me through it. I didn't know, frankly, if I'd ever come out of it.